The movement pushed some sand towards the trapdoor, sending it streaming down into the cellar. Luke shook his head. One way or another, sound found its way into just about every place on Tatooine. While R2-D2 headed back outside to inspect the X-Wing, Luke returned to the bowwood box and crouched down in front of it. Examining the box more closely with the glow rod, he noticed a tight cluster of buttons and realized that the box was a keypad safe. Luke stared hard at the keypad. Ben had never mentioned this box in his basement, and Luke could only imagine what the access code might be. Struggling to recall whether Ben had ever hinted at the code, Luke thought back to that fateful day when Ben, in the room just above Luke's head, had revealed himself to be a Jedi Knight and told Luke about the Force. Luke seriously doubted that Ben would have programmed any obvious letter combinations like Jedi or the Force. He wished he could somehow ask Ben himself, but after their last exchange, this seemed unlikely. Since Dagobah, Luke had been on his own. For a moment he considered breaking the box open with a small pry bar he had noticed on the workbench, but then he dismissed the idea. As much as he was curious about the box's contents, he didn't want to damage it. He reached cautiously towards the box, brushing the tip of his fingers against the keypad. Snap! Luke flinched and pulled his fingers back as the keypad automatically slid aside on an inlaid track to reveal a thumbprint clasp. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but somehow he had bypassed the keypad. He hesitated for a moment, then thought, "Here goes nothing." He pressed his right thumb against the clasp. Clack! The clasp yielded to his touch, and Luke saw a thin black slit appear along the lower edge of the box's lid. He lifted the lid slowly with one hand, adjusted the glow rod with the other, and peered inside the box. The first thing he saw was a flash packet, an explosive device that had been affixed near the back of the keypad. Luke eyed the flash packet warily. It certainly appeared that Ben had rigged the box to explode, but for whatever reason it hadn't worked. Luke thought, maybe it's a dud. Another possibility suddenly struck him. Maybe Ben not only left this box behind for me, but also set it to explode if anyone else attempted to open it. But how? Did Ben somehow obtain my fingerprints? Did he foresee that I would lose my hand? Or was the clasp engineered to recognize me by the Force? Luke was mystified, but if it turned out that his fingerprints had been all that prevented the flash packets from detonating, he would have another reason to be grateful to the medical droid who had created his hand. Peering past the flash packets, Luke saw that the box contained some rectangular objects. He recognized them as books. Although he was far more familiar with data pads for information storage, he had seen enough books in his lifetime to know what they were for and how to use them. The largest book was a leather-bound volume that appeared quite ancient. Luke picked it up and noticed that it too was sealed by a thumb clasp. He pressed his right thumb against the clasp. The clasp yielded without a sound. Luke wasn't surprised to find another flash packet, this one affixed to the book's front cover. Nor was he surprised that the explosive didn't detonate. What surprised him was the handwritten words on the book's front page. Luke, the flash packets were necessary precautions. I trust you will dispose of them properly. The future of the Jedi Knights is in your hands. Read these books and use them wisely. May the Force be with you. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke blinked at the words as if to confirm they were real, that he wasn't just having a dream. The book felt suddenly heavy in his hands. He set it down carefully upon the workbench and, by the light of his glow rod, he began turning the pages. Every page was filled with handwritten text, and his heart began pounding harder as the various words and phrases caught his attention. Jedi Council, Old Republic, Battle of Naboo, Sith Lords, Jedi Temple, Separatist Movement, Battle of Geonosis, The Clone Wars. Luke stopped to catch his breath. He knew he should start at the beginning, but the book was so thick, and he was impatient to find 2 names in particular. He began flipping through the pages even faster, scanning the text for the names Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, that he believed were the keys to answer the answers he sought. Ever since the duel in Cloud City, his thoughts had been dominated by 2 questions. Is Darth Vader my father? And if he is, why didn't Ben tell me the truth? The dull ache returned to Luke's right hand, and he stopped turning the pages. He hadn't found the names he was looking for, but had come to a section that contained Ben's instructions for the construction of lightsabers. The section included numerous illustrations by Ben himself. Luke hadn't considered the possibility of building a lightsaber. Only after he lost his lightsaber at Cloud City did he realize that he had no idea where to obtain another one, let alone how to go about making one from scratch. Now, thanks to Ben's book, it seemed he might actually stand a good chance of replacing it. A skilled Jedi can complete a basic lightsaber in a few days if necessary, but creating one for the first time can take many months. The most essential component is the focusing crystal, preferably a natural jewel which can be... Luke was transfixed, nearly forgetting his intent to find information about his father's identity. He flipped back a few pages and began reading from the beginning of the entry. Like most Jedi younglings, I constructed my first lightsaber at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Although it was merely a competent weapon, I would be a liar if I said I built it purely for training exercises. I crafted it with much thought and care, and dared to imagine that it would serve me well in the future. In fact, I did use the weapon during my earliest missions with my master, but it was not until... Seeing the words Master, Luke skimmed ahead. He suspected Ben was referring to Master Yoda, but he didn't see Yoda's name written anywhere. Luke went back to where he had left off. But it was not until after we went to Ilum, when I was still in my 13th year, that I learned the true power of a lightsaber. Luke turned the page. He had expected the journal to provide details about what Kenobi had experienced in his 13th year that made him learn the true power of a lightsaber. But he read through the next 2 pages. It appeared that the Elder Jedi may have kept that information to himself. Ben had also mentioned being on Ilum, but there wasn't any mention of Ilum either, or at least not that Luke could plainly see. Luke frowned, although he was eager to read the entire book. He also believed that building a new lightsaber might be his first priority. According to Ben's instructions, first-time efforts at lightsaber construction could take months. Luke and his allies didn't know Han Solo's current whereabouts and had yet to formulate a rescue plan, but if they were going up against Boba Fett or Jabba the Hutt, Luke had a feeling that a lightsaber would be useful. As Luke re-examined the instructions for lightsaber construction, his thoughts returned to Obi-Wan at age 13. What was it like then? Luke wished he could have known more.